So when you start to get honest, even when it's unfavorable toward you, you are moving toward choice rather than helplessness. The problem with the victim narrative is there's no such thing. It's a foil. It's a one-sided experience. It removes the nuance of the human condition.
Welcome to Let's Be Real, a completely honest, entirely practical conversation about how to live our lives with freedom, purpose, and abundance. Popular author and communicator Nicole brings her 20 years of experience as a counselor, pastor, and coach to a real conversation about the tricky questions and tough decisions in life, and how to find clarity in action no matter what obstacle you may face. Have a topic to suggest or a tricky situation you need help with? We'd love to hear from you. Send us an email or voice memo to nicole@nicoleunis.com. We might feature you on the show. And now here's your host, Nicole Unis.
Well, welcome friends. Hello. I am so glad you're here with me today as we continue to explore what it feels like to be honest with ourselves, with our choices, and how that actually can lead us into freedom and confidence. And it's been so fun getting started in this podcast because I'm realizing as we go through this process that there's just so many little perspective shifting moments in life that I have been able to accumulate and practice and use in my own life and my family and my clients over the years that really become this drumbeat of what it looks like to choose on the daily to walk forward into freedom and confidence. And it really is a choice, and it is a place of training. It's not something that we just walk into or accidentally find ourselves in. Sometimes I think we can look out at whoever we may look up to or want to emulate. As we talked about last episode, we're all followers. And I think that we can look to people and begin to believe that they must be just wired differently or dealt a different set of cards that are not accessible to us because of the way they're able to move through their life. But what I've discovered over the years, and I do think this is true, of course, I don't know it about everyone. Maybe there are those few people that are like the 1 in a million who just, I don't know, have a different perspective on life. But I think really for most of us and for everyone that I've known and myself included, there's a training to actually grow in health and life and confidence. There's work to be done to get there. It doesn't just happen. We don't just sort of land on the earth with that because we've got to deal with all the obstacles and all the ways that we've been growing up into who we're becoming. And there's a part that we get to play with that. So I'm really excited about today's episode because this particular place of perspective shift has absolutely changed and sort of reframed many difficult moments in my own life, many circumstances where I felt stuck or not sure how to progress. And as I've thought about what this perspective shift does, I realize that it's come up over and over again with my own clients as well. It's a perspective shift that really makes all the difference. So here's a couple of ways that I've seen that play out and see if either of these relate to your experience. One of them was a recent conversation I was having with a client who was dealing with a situation on their team with another employee. And as we kind of talked about the dynamics that were developing between this team member, the person that I was coaching said to me, well, they made me feel. And they used that, they made me feel. And I stopped them right there and we began to have this moment to sort of deconstruct what it means when we say that someone else makes us feel a certain way. Fast forward to another client. I was having a conversation about a marital dynamic, something that was going on in the marriage and a way of arguing that had become more and more contentious. And the person that I was working with said, well, I have no choice. And so both of those phrases, he, she, they made me do it, or when we say to ourselves, either internally or to another person, but I have no choice. What we are falling prey to is a very, very powerful story that is the victim narrative that we can easily line up with. Now, let me tell you how the victim narrative plays out, because we don't know that this is happening. This is sort of a powerful, unconscious kind of thing that's going on underneath the surface. And in the victim narrative, we are in a moment, let's say, where we feel feel misunderstood, where we feel unsure or stuck or not quite sort of knowing the next move to make. It may be in a moment in an interaction with another person. It may be in an interaction just with ourselves, like we're just in a conversation with ourselves. And in this moment where we get to this stuck place, this victim narrative sort of bubbles up, and the victim narrative says, I am helpless. I cannot do anything different than what I am doing right now. Now, the reality of human nature is unless you're in an abusive relationship, which is a completely different story, we can talk about that at another time because there is still a way out in abusive relationships. But unless you are in an abusive, physically, emotionally abusive relationship, there is no such thing as I have no choice. We are all people who have free agency to make choices. Now, circumstances can come to us that are very, very difficult. Circumstances can come to us that we would never choose for ourselves. We are all currently living in circumstances that we would not choose for ourselves. So put aside the fact that things are hard. That I'm not saying that things aren't hard, but when we have that hard thing, that hard conversation, that hard relationship, that hard circumstance, that moment in our own sort of inner wrestling where we make a choice to choose the victim narrative, which says, I am powerless to do anything about the situation that I'm in. Now, you might be thinking, oh no, Nicole, I do not do that. I am a confident person. I don't choose that. But here's how that plays out. It plays out in this little subtle narrative, which says, I have to keep doing what I'm doing, even though I don't like it. I have to keep doing this job that I don't like. I have to stay in this relationship that's painful. Everything has to stay the way it is. And here's what's so powerful about falling prey to that. Even when you think to yourself, you didn't think that you were that kind of person. If you've ever felt like someone else has made you do something, they made me feel anxious, they made me feel belittled, they made me feel frustrated, I can't do anything else, I don't have a choice. Anytime you have that narrative going on, here's what's so powerful about the victim narrative. The victim narrative is so sneaky because what it allows us to do, and I have done this to myself over and over again, is it means that I don't have to face what I am actually accepting in my life. I don't have to look at it. I don't have to own my own responsibility in what I am accepting for myself. By giving away the power that I have of free agency, of being a human being, of making choices. By giving away that power, I no longer have to take responsibility for my part to play in it, which means that I can pity myself, I can soothe myself, I can continue to make choices that maybe aren't the best for myself because I am helpless. I have no choice. Now, that is a powerful reality because sometimes it's easier, many times it's easier to choose the helpless route over choosing the idea that I am allowing myself to be in this position. And so this is the very, very powerful moment of choice when we're in that interaction within ourselves or with another person where we feel like we've given away our power. We have no choice. We have to continue. We draw this conclusion so fast that I am powerless to change anything about this situation. Again, I am not talking about addiction or abuse, although we have to realize in any of those situations, if we found ourselves in an abusive situation or in an addiction where we felt powerless over the behavior, even making the choice to believe and know that you are powerless is still a choice. So here is the huge perspective shift when it comes to unraveling the victim narrative. The powerful narrative of they will never change, I have to do it this way, I have to, allowing myself to blame others for my circumstances or for a life that I don't love. This huge perspective shift that we can make away from that is when we go from they made me do it to I have a choice. And what I like to call this perspective shift is the forced choice narrative. So all the times in life, we have these forced choices. We have these moments that come where we can either jump into the victim narrative, which allows us to not really have to face reality and continue to just do what we're doing. But honestly, like it leads to such deep frustration. And that helplessness is one of the worst parts of the human condition, because when we start to believe that we are helpless to change anything, we have to just accept what we have, we sort of lose hope. And we were wired for hope. We were wired for the ability to be made new and to imagine a future and to move toward that future. And when we lose that, we can, first of all, be triggered very deeply into places where we may have felt very helpless in our childhood, which is another conversation about how to deal with those emotions. But we also lose the agency of what we've been wired to do, which is to do good work that was prepared in advance for us to do, which it says in the book of Ephesians. And I believe that to be true for every human being, that we have good work that's been laid out for us to do. And when we fall into the victim narrative, we lose that ability to see the agency in front of us. So this is what I want to encourage you to do this week. You will probably find yourself in this victim narrative at some point, at some time, in some frustrating relationship or circumstance that you're in that you feel like you can't choose about, you can't change, you can't do anything about it. So here's a prompt that I think can help in this moment. So what you say to yourself when you feel like you're saying, they made me do it, I can't change anything, I have to, all those things. I am choosing to blank because blank, and the results are blank. So I am choosing to stay in this dead-end job that I don't like because I am providing for my family, and the results are we have financial stability. Now, I can say that's what I'm choosing for now. And that's what I like about the forced choice is you can stay doing what you're doing for a time because you have a good reason, but you can still then be exploring other choices. So I am choosing to stay in this dead-end job that I don't like because I want to provide for my family, and the results are financial stability. I am also going to choose to explore other options, but I don't need to feel frustrated that I'm making this choice today. You may have to sit up every morning. I am choosing to explore how to handle and regulate my emotions because I want to be a healthier person. And the results are I expect to be more present and peaceful in my future. You could say, I am choosing to stay in this difficult dynamic in my marriage because I am too scared to explore anything else. I'm afraid that my marriage will fall apart. And the results of that are I'm consistently frustrated with my husband or my partner. Choose to face reality. Remember, we talked about the first part of success, the critical factor of success is honesty. Choosing to be honest about what you're doing and why, even if it is unfavorable toward you, even if it doesn't look good for you, if you're like, I am choosing to do this because I'm too scared to do anything else, because I'm too unsure of how to proceed, because I don't want. So when you start to get honest, even when it's unfavorable toward you, you are moving toward choice rather than helplessness. The problem with the victim narrative is there's no such thing. It's a foil. It's a one-sided experience. It removes the nuance of the human condition. And the human condition is very complex. And we have a lot of power, and we have a lot of places that we give our power away. We have a lot of noble characteristics, and we have a lot of characteristics that we'd rather do without. That is the human experience. Choosing to understand why we're doing what we're doing is the first step toward the life that you want to have. So next time you find yourself in that victim narrative, I am choosing to blank because blank, and the results are blank. And that is a step toward freedom and confidence. And that is good. Okay, y'all. So fun to be together. I will see you next week. Okay, you all, thank you for joining us for Let's Be Real. If you have a question for us, you can submit that. Come visit us on socials, like, subscribe, all those things. We're so glad that you're here, and we can't wait to be together on our podcast or on YouTube next week.
Thanks for tuning in to Let's Be Real with Nicole Eunice. We'd love to hear from you. Have a topic to suggest or a tricky situation you need help with? Send us an email or a voice memo to nicole@nicoleeunice.com, and we may feature you on the show. And don't forget to subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss an episode.